Okay, so I want to do a couple things. I'm going to read a couple of poems from my book, Descent, because it's very connected to my life as an activist. And then I want to talk a little bit about an organization that I co-founded with other poets in the Rio Grande Valley. So, and then I'm going to read a poem that was inspired by that particular movement. So, as I said, my name is Monsiva, and a lot of my work centers around patriarchal violence. And so I've done work directly and indirectly, sort of at different organizations as a student, but mostly as an advocate and counselor. So the book, Descent, the one that won the award, is all about that particular, working in that field. As a witness, documenting what I saw, trying to find a way to raise awareness around that issue. So hopefully it would lead to social change. So I'm just going to do a couple. And before I read it, I'm going to say that as I was finishing, this is part of my MFA thesis, so as I was finishing it, trying to find different ways to sort of tell and convey these different experiences, I turned a lot to songs. And I would sort of take a lot of like rancheras and I would rewrite them and reinterpret them and then allow like women's voices or different experiences to come through. So, you know, sometimes those experiments went well, sometimes they didn't, but that's the part, that's all about the process, right? So the first one is Paloma Negative, a ranchera. Surrounded by familia and friends' voices, black feathers gathered around ribs, cascade down. Black feathers left by doves perched on the sill of our waiting. Darkness yields to dawn as feathers shudder to our feet. I remember the women, as they were about to read their stories, declare years of marriage as if they were a sentence served. 5 years, 13 years, 22 years, 33 years. They survived the blur of black feathers bruising the sky. They survived the black feathers gathered around ribs as they waited for something, anything to change. And finally, I understood, even though I said it in countless speeches, how one can still love what they wish would never return. The other thing I did, which is a little bit experimental, and that was a description of the panel, was that I would take a lot of the materials that we used as counselors. So we had progress notes, and we had different places where we would document this. And so I kind of played with that as a form to also begin to kind of illuminate these cases that were happening. So this one's called Descent, a progress note. We call them progress notes, not counseling session summaries. Progress indicated a movement forward, a progression toward healing, that money was being used wisely, that wounds were sealing, that our words were softening scars into flat white lines. Each note began the same: sex, age, and lineage. Along the border, it meant rarely changing of Mexican descent, meaning Hispanic on monthly reports. Descent, a fall, as in sometimes misspelled or altered to decent, the act of appearing respectable and moral, meaning not wearing a tight skirt, not being drunk, or not appearing gay. Decent, they tell us, will not lead to rape. Decent is a hand against a tidal wave. Water has power over bodies. I look into water pulled in my palm. Words appear in verse. I provide translation, add 3 letters, channel my mother's voice. No seas indecente, or dissent, to rebel. To not do as I was told, confined to edges of progress notes, I'd allow words to hang over the side, an act of dissent, to misspell the word dissent. It wasn't decent of me to get back at the executive director in this way when she wrote me up for wearing a shirt she deemed indecent. Flippant is the word she used, not defiant, not with fist raised, but with hair tossed over shoulder. Flippant, my voice in ashes on my tongue, not fire. With each note, a new spelling descended one from the next until I couldn't find my way back to the correct word, until I wouldn't allow myself to find the exact word indecent to believe I could even know the language needed, to believe that I could possess a complete understanding of what had happened to each client, each survivor. Notes in monotony desensitized, templates give sessions form, words descended down margins. I held meaning at the edge of understanding. And now just a little, I know it's a little bit of a shift here, but I recently moved to the Rio Grande Valley, and I started working with a good friend of mine, Emi Bettis, who was supposed to be here with us today. And she wanted me to make sure that I highlighted the organization, because she and I have always worked together on these kinds of issues. We've always had readings, and she lived in El Paso for a while. That's where we knew each other, to raise awareness around all these issues. So, I mean, after the election, she and I stayed in close contact, especially because he said, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And so when I got to the Valley, we started working together to form Resistencia, Poets Against Walls. And it's a social media. We're going to use social media as a way to kind of raise awareness and document what's happening in the Valley. So we do, and I have to plug it, we have our Facebook page, Resistencia, Poets Against Walls. So if you haven't liked it, please do so. And we try to post little documentaries and things like that. So please check it out, and come and talk to me after if you want to know more about it. We have the Facebook page. I think we're going to set up our Instagram soon. We have a Twitter account and a YouTube channel. So we have different poets who will come down and read and share like their work or their experiences in the border. So we're just getting started. So when she first asked me to join, we did I think it was about 20 poets gathered along the border, and each one of us read a piece. So this is the piece I wrote for that first occasion, and it's called A Letter to My Son. It was only the third time since you arrived into the world that your hope, a dark blue and red emblem, seemed to mark a crossroad, that you noticed my voice splinter. And my son, I had to hold your head close and breathe in your hair to evoke the desert, our home, our shared birthplace, our shared homeland, La Frontera. My comfort against the hate that grasped at an era of imagined redemption. I heed my mentor's warning, history does not repeat itself exactly. Any similarities are the deliberate calculations of men, replications. Their plans stirred fears held about our gente, our home, a space they think wide open, our people, interlopers, always. They haven't experienced the fence jutting or the heat or the river claiming and giving. We are here when blame needs placing. My son, your Ita returned the year I was born, and the U.S. seemed less a specter that deported your great-great-aunt when she dared to say her children deserved a better school. I want you to know our continual presence, our rootedness, our belonging, our place in this land's history is a threat to an invented color line. The they who chanted and chanted for a wall want to clearly remark, reestablish this line that men, these men who always want something from us, our land, our labor, even our absence promised. You can count the 3 days you witnessed tears the women who raised me taught me strength and arms wrapped tight to close away vulnerabilities that I resented but now understand as a necessity to believe I can keep you safe. A feeling that you, my son, equate with our home's mountains that limits every storm's reach, that I echo in my brace so you may feel it everywhere we go, so we carry home everywhere along La Frontera. Our home, where a man who rules in favor of divisions will declare our home, our history, a violent sliver, and force it into the image of his rhetoric. A war zone that isn't except in necessity. I remember also that on that day, I saw a young man on campus clad in bright red and blue, covered in the slogan of what will be made great again, gleefully, as if some match had just been won. And my son, I wanted to hug him this boy, someone else's son, against what he doesn't know is coming. From those who chanted, wall, wall, wall. From those who whispered it wistfully to themselves, as their one friend of color wouldn't judge them openly. From those who recognized the slogan's danger but voted for him anyway, for an imagined past. Because like a beast diseased and eating its own tentacles, they would rather destroy themselves than finally accept us. Thank you.